African History Network and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. So we've talked about before um, stories about African Americans having homes appraised at very low levels lower than what they thought the homes would appraise for, levels lower than what the comparable rates are in their area, in their neighborhoods. Um, there's a story out of Cincinnati that is probably the latest story to go viral, dealing with African Americans trying to have their homes appraised and having their homes appraised properly with the proper home value so they can get the correct asking price. So if I were to um, tell you, or if I were to ask you, what does it mean to wash your home in whiteness? Wash your home in whiteness. What would you think that meant? To wash your home in whiteness. Well, this is what one couple in Cincinnati, Ohio did. And we're going to talk about what happened when they did this. We're going to talk about what happened to the value of their home. It's an African American couple in their 30s. Very interesting story out of Cincinnati, Ohio. We know this past Saturday was the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington. March on Washington originally took place August 28th, 1963. And it was the March for Jobs and Freedom. They were focusing on dismantling white supremacy and racism. You had John Lewis, you had Dr. King, A. Philip Randolph. So this past Saturday was the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington. We talked about this some on our Sunday show, but there were a couple of segments I did not get a chance to get to. When I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, August 27th, we talked about this. Dr. Avis Jones, the Weaver, who you see almost every day on the Black News Channel, she was sitting in for Roland. And we discussed the March on Washington and what's taken place since 1963. And one of the things I talked about is how, so many people are looking at this and talking about a commemoration 58 years later, commemorating the March on Washington. It's like, no, we're under attack right now. The purpose of the 58th anniversary, purpose of the actual march, and there were approximately 85 marches across the country, in various cities across the country. Well, there were approximately 85 cities across the country. There are marches in about 85 cities across the country. We know there were two big ones in Washington, D.C., but they weren't focused on so much so looking back. They're focused on the attack that we're under right now. Okay, so I talked about this when I was on the panel. I'm going to share an excerpt of that panel discussion with you from Roland Martin Unfiltered. And then on Weekends with Alex Witt on MSNBC, they talked about the march as well and the attack that people are under, the attack that we're under right now. And it's not just African Americans under attack, but the attack that we're under right now. We're talking about voting rights, whether we're talking about income inequality, all of this, fighting for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act that passed the House of Representatives March 3rd, 2021 by a vote of 220 to 212. No Republicans voted for the bill, just like no Republicans voted for the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that passed last week, 219 to 212. No Republicans voted for the bill. Activists gathered at the King Center on the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington. So we'll share that excerpt. And then today was day 9 in testimony in the trial of one R. Kelly. And today, a former assistant, Suzette Mayweather, testified against R. Kelly. And in her testimony today, she said R. Kelly once confronted her over conversations she had that violated his rules. Miss Mayweather said she had discussed R. Kelly's personal life with a woman she identified as Dominique, with whom she said R. Kelly was in a relationship with. When the singer found out that they had talked about him, he became enraged, she said. So we're going to talk some about the testimony that took place in court today. More craziness. This is one of the craziest trials I've seen. More craziness. Okay, so we'll discuss that. All right, now, also, we'll let you know about we have a new session of the 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. We have a new session of this starting up. Class number 1 starts up Saturday, September 4th, 2021, 12 noon to 2 p.m. 12 noon to 2 p.m. Saturday, September 24th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Class number 1 starts. So some people are saying, well, hey, I heard about this class. I missed it when it first started. Let me know when you're going to start another section. We have another section starting up. This is your time to register for it. This is a 10-week online course, and we deal with history from 1865, the last year of the Civil War, 1865 to 1968. So we go through Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877. We go through the Jim Crow era, World War I, World War II, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement. Okay, visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We do the classes live. All the sessions are recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime you want to. Class is regularly $130. It's on sale $80. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. As soon as you register, there's bonus content that you can start watching, and then you can join us in class, okay, this Saturday. Then we also have class number 1 starting up of Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 10-week online course also that I teach. We deal with thousands of years history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. This class number 1 starts Sunday, September 5th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's right on the homepage of our website, HistoryNetwork.com. All right, now, on the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. And thought about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, the 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, the 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter, or visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, I want to jump into this first story here right before the break. So I saw this story, news1.com, is an article about it, and WCPO out of Cincinnati, and AtlantaBlackStar.com. This deals with an African-American family, Erica and Aaron Parker. And they live in Cincinnati, Ohio. They were putting their home up for sale, and they got an appraisal for their home that was much lower than what they thought the home should appraise, the value of the home should be. Okay, let's go to clip 1, Shakita. Let's hear the story, what happened to them.
Cincinnati are up for the 20th straight month. Single-family homes here are selling faster than any city nationwide other than Omaha, Nebraska.
The booming housing market's producing windfalls for many local families who are selling their houses. But our Lucy May has the story of a couple who says their boom became a bust when their civil rights were violated.
They experienced what fair housing advocates call appraisal discrimination.
What are you doing, you might ask? It's called whitewashing, where you wash your house in whiteness in order for it to sell.
That's the voice of Erica Parker. She recorded videos to document her changes to the Loveland house she and her husband Aaron owned before an appraiser came to determine its value.
It's a sad damn day in my house, but gotta do what you gotta do.
An initial appraisal of the Parkers' home came in $42,500 lower than the buyers of the house had agreed to pay. Erica was working from home when the appraiser arrived and had not taken down any photos.
I was shocked. I couldn't believe it.
Amy Goodman is the Parkers' friend and realtor.
I got the call from the other realtor, and she asked me if I was sitting down. And I was like, that's never good.
Goodman and the Parkers got a copy of that appraisal and found errors they say the appraiser and lender refused to correct.
At a time when we were excited about selling our home and building a new home, that was all taken away from us.
They decided to hire a different appraiser for another opinion. That's when Erica removed all signs of their race, including pictures that belonged to their two daughters.
My daughter asked me, Mommy, what are you doing? Why? Because we weren't moving yet. And I remember I had to just talk to her and say, you know, we talked about this before. Sometimes because of the color of our skin, we get treated differently.
The Parkers replaced their family photos with pictures a white neighbor lent them, and Goodman met the second appraiser at their house. The second appraisal came back $92,000 higher.
At that point, we're realizing this is happening to us.
I went from like crying to angry to crying to I went back and forth. Like I didn't really stay in one emotion too long. My husband was focused because he's like, I knew it was wrong.
The Parkers are not disclosing the names of the appraisers or the companies they work for. They say this problem is bigger than any individual or business.
Pause it right there, Shakita. Pause it right there. We're coming up on a break. We're going to continue this on the other side of the break. And we'll discuss what happened with this and why is this taking place. We keep hearing stories about this, and this impacts generational wealth. This doesn't just impact the net worth of the Parkers, but also their children, what they can pass on to their children. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, stand by. Stand by. Okay, everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. Stand by. We'll be back from break in 4 minutes. Stand by. How's everybody doing? Stand by, everybody. Okay, back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Stand by, everybody. Okay, back from break in 2 minutes. Stand by. We've got Alvin, Timothy, TC, Arlene.
Economic empowerment, entrepreneurship,
Just a few of the people
relationships,
watching.
love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. It was laws and policies that put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take us out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you control the compass of his or her actions because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. 910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, August 31st, 2021, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Want to remind you of a couple things here. Number one, you can watch archived episodes of the African History Network show on Black on Purpose TV, BOPTV.com. So we have the shows archived on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. We rebroadcast them throughout the day. But they're also on Black on Purpose TV as well, BOPTV.com. And then Sunday, September 26, 2021, 3 p.m. at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History, the Hapi City Tour, the film Hapi, which deals with African history and economic empowerment. It stars Professor Jane Small and Dr. Julia Malveaux and Tony Browder and Dr. Wade Nobles. There's going to be a screening of it at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History Sunday, September 26, 2021. There'll also be a panel discussion. I'll be the moderator of the panel discussion. So this is a screening and panel discussion. Visit hapifilm.com for more information. hapifilm.com for more information. Okay, and you can order your tickets there. hapifilm.com. And you'll hear more about that. Okay. I want to go back to this story here. Back that clip up about a minute, Shakita, please. I want to go back to this story. This is WCPO out of Cincinnati has this story about the Parker family. Okay. Erica and Aaron Parker. And the article from WCPO and other outlets picked this up. News1.com, Atlanta Black Star. This black family's home appraisal grew by $92,000 after they removed all signs of their race. This black family's home appraisal grew by $92,000 after they removed all signs of their race. Okay, and this article is from it was updated August 26, 2021, originally August 19th, 2021. Let's go back to the rest of this clip, Shakita.
Well, average home prices in Cincinnati are up for the 20th straight month. Single-family homes here are selling faster than any city nationwide other than Omaha, Nebraska.
The booming housing market's producing windfalls for many local families who are selling their houses. But our Lucine May has the story of a couple who says their boom became a bust when their civil rights were violated.
They experienced what fair housing advocates call appraisal discrimination.
What are you doing, you might ask? It's called whitewashing, where you wash your house in whiteness in order for it to sell.
That's the voice of Erica Parker. She recorded videos to document her changes to the Loveland house she and her husband Aaron owned before an appraiser came to determine its value.
It's a sad damn day in my house, but gotta do what you gotta do.
An initial appraisal of the Parkers' home came in $42,500 lower than the buyers of the house had agreed to pay. Erica was working from home when the appraiser arrived and had not taken down any photos.
I was shocked. I couldn't believe it.
Amy Goodman is the Parkers' friend and realtor.
I got the call from the other realtor, and she asked me if I was sitting down. And I was like, That's never good.
Goodman and the Parkers got a copy of that appraisal and found errors they say the appraiser and lender refused to correct.
At a time when we were excited about selling our home and building a new home, that was all taken away from us.
They decided to hire a different appraiser for another opinion. That's when Erica removed all signs of their race, including pictures that belonged to their 2 daughters.
My daughter asked me, Mommy, what are you doing? Why? Because we weren't moving yet. And I remember I had to just talk to her and say, you know, we talked about this before. Sometimes because of the color of our skin, we get treated differently.
The Parkers replaced their family photos with pictures a white neighbor lent them, and Goodman met the second appraiser at their house. The second appraisal came back $92,000 higher.
At that point, we're realizing this is happening to us.
I went from like crying to angry to crying to I went back and forth. Like I didn't really stay in one emotion too long. My husband was focused because he's like, I knew it was wrong.
The Parkers are not disclosing the names of the appraisers or the companies they work for. They say this problem is bigger than any individual or business.
We're both in our 30s, and we knew that anytime we sell our home, that we need to, take down our black family photos, that we need to neutralize our house that doesn't, show our race.
It's really uncomfortable to think that this is still happening in 2021.
The Parkers say they're telling their story to draw attention to the problem, or as Erica put it, on that sad day in the home they eventually sold.
I'm taking these videos to document the ridiculousness it is of being a black middle-class family in America.
Lucy May, WCPO 9 News.
Okay, that's WCPO Channel 9 out of Cincinnati. Okay, if we look at this article, here quickly from WCPO. Now, Michael Neal, who is a senior research associate with the Urban Institute, in this article regarding this story, he said, quote, "We certainly are hearing stories about this nationwide, about this really acute problem being faced by homeowners of color and black homeowners in particular." He said that the balance of the research certainly suggests that this is a challenge and that this is a real issue. Okay, now, it's been a challenge for African-American homeowners for generations, said Erica's husband, Aaron Parker. And it goes far beyond any single incident. He said, if our parents know about it, our grandparents know about it, and friends and family, it's systemic. Okay, it's systemic. Now, something very interesting in researching this story here. Okay, so they plan to list their home for $525,000. Okay, they plan to list it for $525,000, and they got an offer of $500,000 from a buyer. But the first appraisal that they got was for $42,500 lower than the agreed upon sale price. Okay, so they were shocked when that happened. Now, as you heard in the story, they removed all elements of Africanity from and here's the couple once again. They moved all elements of Africanity from their house. Family pictures from their white neighbors. Now, Amy Goodman is their real estate agent, who's a friend of theirs, and Amy Goodman is a white woman. What's something very interesting here, and we've covered these different stories about this, and it was one story that we covered here on the show, and it talked about a couple, and it was an interracial couple, but no, it was one story where the woman, I think this was out of Indiana, she has an African-American girlfriend whose husband is white, and she asked the white guy to pretend to be the homeowner of her home, and she took down all pictures and books and things like this and put that were of African Americans and put up pictures of white people and made it look like he was the homeowner, and her home appraisal skyrocketed. What they did here was, and this is the I've seen a number of different cases about these home appraisals that are underappraised when it comes to an African American homeowner. This is, I think, the first case. It may not be the first case, but this is the first case I remember where they asked for a copy of the appraisal, and they found errors in the appraisal. So this is something very key here. If we look at this article, Goodman, Amy Goodman and the Parkers requested a copy of the appraisal and found some errors. They found some errors. And sometimes in situations like this, you know, we may just be so upset we don't want to ask questions, or we think that, okay, we can't win, we can't challenge the system or something like that, right? So they requested a copy of the appraisal and found some errors. Although the home was built in 2014, for example, the appraisal listed the home as 15 years old. The home is only 7 years old. The appraisal listed the home as 15 years old. Now, I'm not sure why the appraiser listed as 15 years old. I'm not sure if the appraiser can't count or if it's just a mistake. I don't know. Now, the appraisal also said no updates have been made, or, home improvements have been made to the house since it was built, which was incorrect. Quote, I've seen, now Amy Goodman said, I've seen appraisals missed by $5,000 to $10,000. She said that's kind of common, but almost $50,000 is just crazy. She said she never would have anticipated that. So if you have a situation like this, ask for a copy of the appraisal, review it with your real estate agent. There may be errors in there that you can get fixed. Now, in this situation, the appraiser refused to change or correct the errors. Okay, in this situation here. Now, also, the Parkers had not hidden their race from the first appraiser as well. Okay. All right, so read the rest of this story. It's a very interesting story, and it was emotional also because she had to, Erica Parker had to explain really racism to her children. Her children are 6 years old and 3 years old, and she had to explain it to like the 6-year-old. And in the video, that she recorded a video of her whitewashing her home, okay, or washing her home in whiteness. That's the term they use, washing the home in whiteness. And there's a section of the story where they talk about that. She said that she said, quote, no one should have to tell their 6-year-old daughter why they're taking down their black Superman, their black Catwoman, their black Wonder Woman, hiding it. There were pictures that like her daughter had drawn and things like this, and hiding it and flipping it around. She said, me explaining to my 3-year-old why her stick figures in the dining room have to be taken down because they're drawn with a black family. Okay. So I think the daughter is 3 and the son is 6, I think, or one of them. They have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. Okay. So, you have to have these conversations with your children because of something that an appraiser did. Me explaining to my 3-year-old why it appears they have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old daughter. Why her stick figures in the dining room have to be taken down because they're drawn with a black family. She drew the dog in green, but we were all brown. All right, now, she explained to her 6-year-old as best she could after reminding her that sometimes they get treated differently because they're black. So now here are before and after pictures here. Let me see. Can we see this here? Okay. These are before and after pictures. So on the left, you see it with the real pictures up, African American family. Okay. Then you see the pictures up with with white people and white children. All right. Oh man. And there's a part. Okay, she said, so how am I washing my house in whiteness? How am I washing my house in whiteness? Erica Parker said in her video. She said, I'm taking pictures down and turning them around, and I'm going to replace them with my neighbors. Now, Amy Goodman, the real estate agent who is white, agreed to be present for the next appraiser. Amy did a final walkthrough of the house and took down memorabilia from Aaron Parker's historically black fraternity, a detail the Parkers had missed. All this stuff you got to go through just to be treated fairly, to be treated equally. See, this is why when you have white people who say African Americans could be equally as successful as white people if they just try harder, just like the Gallup poll from April 4th, 2018. Okay, the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. Okay, let me see. Hold on. Here we go. Here. This YouGov, it was YouGov poll. 40% of whites think black people. Let me pull this up. We've talked about this before. 40% of whites think black people just need to try harder. Poll finds 40% of whites think black people just need to try harder. Now, this is April 4th, 2018. Okay, 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. And it says in the poll, YouGov asked a number of questions on what it called racial resentment, one of which centered on whether the respondent agreed with the statement. It's really a matter of some people not trying hard enough. If blacks would only try harder, they could be just as well off as white people. If blacks would only try harder, they could be just as well off as white people. Now, what do you mean try harder? You mean enslave people for 246 years and have them work for free? You mean pass laws that have massive land giveaways of millions of acres of land, and you largely lock one race of people out of that, like the Homestead Act of 1862, which really gave away almost 270 million acres of land, and the last land allotment was given away in 1988 in Alaska. And the Southern Homestead Act of 1866 gave away about 45 million acres of land. The Dawes Allotment Act of 1887 gave away about 138 million acres of land. 2/3 of that went to white people. It was supposed to go to Native Americans and Black Indians. 2/3 of it went to white people. So when they say try harder at what? Because that's not how white people became successful. It's because of laws and policies. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. It's because of laws and policies. It wasn't because they worked harder, because if working harder, if trying harder was the common denominator for success in this country, then African Americans would be the most successful people in the history of this country, because who worked harder than a slave? African Americans would be the most successful people in this country. And there were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that African people had in this country from 1619 to 1865. We didn't just pick cotton. We were jockeys, we were engineers, we were bartenders, barrel makers. There was money made off of the inventions of enslaved Africans as well, and our ingenuity. There were at least 262 skills, trades, and crafts that we had in this country from 1619 to 1865. So when I hear them say things, oh, they just need to try harder. Okay, you know, they don't talk about massive land giveaways. They don't talk about how many of us were locked out of unions and how labor unions were created after the Civil War ended to lock us out of the skilled trades that we dominated during slavery, when largely we were working for white people. But now that we can negotiate contracts, and you have things like the Freedmen's Bureau that's helping us negotiate contracts and fair wages. Okay, now these labor unions are being created, like the National Labor Union, created in 1866. And you have other labor unions created to protect jobs for white men and protect jobs for white immigrants coming to this country and locking us out of those positions. Overall, 35% of respondents agreed, 16% strongly, 19% somewhat, with the statement that 28%, with the statement, okay, that black people just need to try harder. 28% neither agreed nor disagreed. Read this article here about this study. 40% of whites think black people just need to try harder. See, they don't talk about leveling the playing field, or they don't say give African Americans the same advantages that white people had in this country. They don't say that. They just say you just try harder. Okay. I just find that very interesting. They don't want to deal with redlining. They don't want to deal with restrictive covenants that were. This is one of the things that the article talks about. The restrictive covenants, where it was written into the deeds of white people's homes that they could not sell the home to someone who was non-white, to lock African Americans out of being able to buy homes or accumulate wealth in home ownership. If we look at this here, let's see. Research has found, let's go back to this, and then we're gonna go to this next story here. Cue up, Shakita, cue up, I think it's clip number 2 from Roland Martin Unfiltered. We're gonna go to that next. Research has found that homes owned by African Americans and Hispanic homeowners are valued systematically lower than those of white homeowners. Research has found, now this is not anecdotes. This is not, I heard from my barber's cousin's babysitter, or I heard from my barber's cousin's ex-wife, okay, that her sorority sister's architect had a problem selling his home. That's not what this is. Okay. Research has found that homes owned by Black and Hispanic homeowners are valued systematically lower than those of white homeowners. The Urban Institute's Michael Neal said, even controlling for such factors as household size, neighborhood amenities, and the type of home being appraised. So when you have people like Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Senator, look, punk ass Lindsey Graham lost his spine when John McCain died. When you have senators like Lindsey Graham, Republican, okay, shielding for Donald Trump, when he says systemic racism doesn't exist, well, the reason why they lie and say systemic racism doesn't exist is because they are benefiting from systemic racism and they don't want to give it up. En Vogue had a song said, "Give it up, turn it loose." They don't want to give it up and turn it loose. They got a good thing going. They don't want to get because if you acknowledge systemic racism exists and you acknowledge that it's wrong, then you have to ask Republicans, okay, so what are you going to do about it? What policies are you putting in place? Well, they don't want to acknowledge that it exists. That's why they say it doesn't exist. That's why they are attacking policies like the $4 billion in debt relief for African-American farmers and Native American farmers and Latino farmers. That was in a $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. They're calling that racist. They're calling that reverse racism. And then they say systemic racism doesn't exist. Because if you acknowledge it exists and you acknowledge it's harmful, well, then they're going to ask you, okay, so what policies are you going to put in place to deal with it? When you try to put policies in place to deal with systemic racism, Republicans call the policies racist because they just want things to stay the way they are. And they just tell you to try harder. That's the hustle that they run. They benefit from systemic racism and they know it. So they want to make it a personal issue, an individual choice, not that the deck is stacked against you in their favor. Okay, so read the rest of this article here. And then there's a part in here where they talk about racial covenants. They mention this in this piece here as well. Racial covenants and redlining made it more difficult for African American families to buy homes in majority white neighborhoods for decades. Okay. At the same time, the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts in 1952 and 1956 drove about 41,000 miles of U.S. interstate highways across this country. They ran through approximately 1,600 African American communities, wiping out homes and wiping out businesses that we own. And then you have people say, just try harder. That was funded by the government. That we didn't build those highways ourselves. That was funded by the government, and it created jobs largely for white men to run expressways through our communities. Like I-375 that ran through Black Bottom and Paradise Valley here in Detroit. I-244 that ran through Tulsa, Oklahoma, the North Tulsa where African Americans live, because that ran through in 1970. I-244, and it was another one, 75 freeway that ran through the black community in Tulsa, wiping out what was left of Black Wall Street. Largely what was left. There's only about a block left there now of what was about 36 blocks of African American owned businesses. Appraisal discrimination can mean that even when an African American family like the Parkers achieved the dream of home ownership, like white people keep saying, oh, just try harder. Well, they tried harder. Their home is, they're both two professionals, college graduates, okay? $500,000 home valued, a little more than $500,000. Actually, this one's valued was about $592,000. They're in their 30s, okay? But appraisal discrimination can mean that even when an African American family like the Parkers achieved the dream of home ownership, they're married, male, female, they're married, okay? No baby mamas, they're married. Quote, homeowners of color may not benefit from home ownership to the same degree as their white peers without significant changes in policy. Well, one of the number one ways to create wealth, and that the average person creates wealth in this country, is through home ownership. So when we talk about racism being a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race, we're talking about laws and policies. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. Where here Michael Neal is, he's saying this is tied to policy. You have to have significant changes in policy. And what this will do is that this will change generational wealth in favor of African Americans and Latinos, things like this. Well, so see, that's the fair thing to do. But when you've had privilege all your life, equality feels like oppression. When you've had privilege all your life, equality feels like oppression. All right, so read the rest of this article here, because this is like 9 pages. I printed up the whole article and read the whole thing. Okay. This black family's home appraisal grew by 92,000 after they removed all signs of race. Okay, so check that one out. So speaking of white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works is Dr. Francis Cress Wilson and Nellie Fuller talked about. This past Saturday was the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington. Now, we talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, August 27th. Dr. Avis Jones, the Weaver, was sitting there for Roland, and she came to me, and I started dealing with some history. Let's go to this clip, Shakita. Okay, take it off mute. Okay, I don't hear anything. Clip number 2, Roland Martin Unfiltered, start at the 3250 mark.
different.
Absolutely. You got that right. It's gotten different. It's not that we've completely overcome, but we're fighting different battles. And it was also a good guess that I should have maybe gone to Mike, the historian on this. Okay. That would have been a good move.
And I've got some sense to drop on that.
Everybody I know, absolutely. But Mike, I would especially love to hear your thoughts on this. And when I think about really, for me, when I think about all that we fought for and all the blood that was spilled voting rights, and to see all that's happening right now to pull us back to the Jim Crow era, what does that make you think as a historian with regards to where we've come from, but still where we are now?
Jim Crow and Jane Crow had children, and we don't understand how to protect games. And this is the Mississippi State Convention of 1890 all over again, where they convened and they said, we are here to exclude the Negro. And the man that presided over the Mississippi State Convention 1890, where they voted on the Mississippi State Constitution that implemented poll taxes and literacy tests in a state at the time that was majority African American. His name was Solomon Saladin Calhoun, and he said basically let's just tell the truth about why we're here. We're here to exclude the Negro, because African Americans were voting. We voted during Reconstruction. We voted approximately 2,000 African American men into elected office. Mississippi in 1870 saw its first and only U.S. Senator, Hiram Rhodes Revels, who became U.S. Senator in 1870, African American man. So we saw these attacks. We saw in 1871 during Reconstruction, President Ulysses S. Grant had to use the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871 to impose martial law in 9 counties in South Carolina to crack down on the Klan and white domestic terrorists that were attacking elected officials, attacking African American elected officials. South Carolina, the majority of the state legislature in South Carolina during Reconstruction were African Americans. So what we see here now, what just took place in Texas, and in the Texas State Constitution of 1876, they had a clause called purity of the ballot box. And when you study the history of Texas, Texas came into the Union in 1845 as a slaveholding state, and they still have a white supremacy mentality in Texas. This is all, see, racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. Racism has nothing to do with not liking people or calling people racial epithets. Racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, benefits, privileges, land, access to education, access to opportunity, jobs, etc., and they use that to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. What we have to understand is that things are not a constant. We have to understand the concept of protecting gains. There's always somebody trying to take away what you have because they see your advancement as something being taken away from them. Okay, there's an old saying that equality, when you've always had privilege, equality feels like oppression. Okay? Yeah. So lastly, with this 58th anniversary, we have to. It ain't just celebrating what happened in '63. We're under attack right now. Mm-hmm. So we have to understand how the power of the vote and why. Going back to the census, that just took the census results, and white people have a negative birth rate, okay, and they're trying to maintain power, especially white Republicans trying to maintain power.
All right, let's pause right there. Hey, Shakita, do me a favor, book that Imhotep guy on our show for tomorrow. All right, I like him. Okay, we're out of time right here. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. Watching on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. Keep watching. We're going to keep going for a few more minutes. We're going to deal with day 9 in the R. Kelly trial. If you'd like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHNShow through Cash App, $ the AHNShow through Cash App, then also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHNShow, paypal.me/the AHNShow. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. Remember, right now, let's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. Stand by, everybody. Okay. Remember that you can. We have a new session of the 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Okay, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. This is a 10-week online course. We do the classes live. This class is going to be 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is going to be class number 1, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And each class we go through and analyze approximately a 10-year period of history. And we start with the last year of the Civil War and what happened after the Civil War ended. Okay, so we could better understand what happened after slavery ended and how we got to where we are today, how we got into this predicament, so we understand where we need to go from here. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and it's right on the home page. Class number 1 starts up Saturday, September 4th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The class is regularly $130. Is on sale $80. You can watch from around the world. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, everything. Okay, and even after the 10-week course is over with, you still have access to the full class. You can go back and watch it as much as you want to. All right, so register for that one. As soon as you register, there's bonus content that you can start watching. We'll post the link here, and it's also on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And then the second class that I teach, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We have class number 1 starting up Sunday, September 5th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This class, we deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We deal with ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt, ancient Africa, Nile Valley region of Africa. We deal with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. We deal with what leads to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, so the class from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. That class basically picks up where ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, leaves off. Okay, because there's just so much information, and I couldn't get everything into one 10-week online course. So from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement, that allows us to really zoom in and each class go through and analyze an approximately 10-year period of history to get a better understanding of this history and the laws and policies that were put in place to put us in the predicament we are today. Okay, so you can register for that. All right, now, also coming up September 4th, and I just got the information today. There's a rally here in Detroit. There's an event here in Detroit. The People's Coalition is organizing this Stop Killing Our Babies campaign. Stop Killing Our Babies campaign. The People's Coalition. This is September 4th, 12 noon to 6 p.m. at Rouge Park Basketball Court. There'll be free food, beverages, young talent showcase, cash prize for top 3 business ideas. There's a march that's going to start 12:30. There's going to be a march 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. Okay, this is something positive that's taking place in the community. A lot of times people like Candace Owens and a lot of these idiotic black conservatives say African Americans don't do anything when it comes to crime in the community. Yes, we do. Your dumb ass just isn't there when it's taking place. That's all. You're not there at these events, and you're not there to talk about these events. Okay, so this is taking place on Saturday, September 4th. Saturday, September 4th, 2021, 12 noon to 6 p.m. There'll be bounce houses. They're going to have things for kids. They'll have clowns, black-owned vendors as well. This information here is send child's business idea to info@thepeoplesaction.com, thepeoplesaction.com. This is the People's Action organization that's putting this on. Visit the website, thepeoplesaction.com, thepeoplesaction.com. There'll be festivities. Festivities start 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be political education as well taking place. So this is going to be a really, really good event. Check this out. Attend this. Stop Killing Our Babies. Remembering Francesca Marks. Stop Killing Our Babies. September 4th, 12 noon to 6 p.m. Okay. All right. Okay, let's continue here. Now, I want to go to here is the clip from Roland Martin Unfiltered. That was from Friday, August 27th. That's on Roland's Facebook page, Roland Martin, and Roland's YouTube channel, Roland Martin on YouTube. And we have the link here to that full episode. Okay, so here is, we'll post this here. Here's the link to the full episode. All right. Now, okay, I want to go to on Alex Witt show on MSNBC. They talked about the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. I didn't get a chance to share this clip on Sunday's show or Monday's show. The shows were jam-packed. So we're going to squeeze this in here, and then we're going to talk about day 9 in the R. Kelly trial. All right. And this is Shaquille Brewster. Now, Shaquille Brewster was reporting on Hurricane Ida. I think it was in New Orleans. And this idiotic white man started trying to attack him and yell at him. So that's gone viral also. That guy was campaigning for a behind whooping. He almost got elected. That's what happened to him. NBC Shaquille Brewster reports from the King Center in Atlanta, Georgia, where activists are rallying for voting rights on the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington for jobs and freedom.
Shaq, welcome to you, my friend. What can you tell us about the rally there?
Just a second, let's back this up.
So he's at the King Center in Atlanta. Shaq, welcome to you, my friend. What can you tell us about the rally there?
Well, Alex, I'll tell you, I'll pick up on where Josh left off when he talked about the sense of history, the emotion there at the rally. This is a rally that's taking place right outside of the King Center. There was a rally at the beginning, then the group went on to march, and then they are back here now, and later there'll be a performance. But in addition to that sense of history, there's also this idea of passion and focus. And I want to show you one of the signs that you see here, the We Want the For the People Act. That's one of the direct pieces of legislation that people here are calling for. There's also H.R. 1 that they're talking about. H.R. 4, which is the John Lewis Voter Rights Restoration Act, going back and trying to fix what the Supreme Court did both recently and back in 2013. And that is the focus that has driven people here, especially in a state like Georgia. Look, they understand that back in March, there was a law that Governor Kemp signed that increased the amount of restrictions on voting. And they say they feel like their voting rights are under attack. And that's what brought them here today. I want you to listen to a little bit of how they put that in their own words.
What's happening today is just disgraceful for the way we're being treated and them denying us our rights to vote, which is automatic.
The thing's 90 pages long and full of nothing but ways to keep poor people from voting, to keep black and brown people from voting, to keep disabled people from voting. And if you fall into any of those categories, you need to be out here and doing whatever it takes to call your senators and congressmen and tell them to pass the John Lewis Act and the For the People Act.
And they're calling for that federal legislation, again, because they feel like their local voting rights are under attack. But there's a little bit of contrast there, because we also learned this week that Georgia is leading the nation, or at least is in the top few states in this country in terms of voter registration. More than 95% of adults here in this state are registered to vote. That's largely credited to Secretary of State Brian Kemp and what he did when he was Secretary of State with the automatic voter registration for people who come in and get their driver's licenses. But now he is the foe as governor with that law that he passed back in March, which is going to have the effect of shutting down some drop boxes, dramatically reducing drop boxes in places like here in Atlanta. It limits the amount of early voting hours. That was something that people took advantage of in many of these states where, of course, they flipped 2 Senate seats and where President Biden was victorious by that small margin. So it's because of that people are coming out here. I'll tell you one common theme that I've heard from multiple people is the idea that they are frustrated that they are still having this fight. People who saw this fight back in 1963 saying that I can't believe we're still out here. As one lady put it to me, that March on Washington, that initial one was the start of it. She said, now it's time to protect the gains that were there. And she says, if you're not watching, if you're not focusing, if you're not out here fighting, then you're at risk of losing those exact voting rights. That's what people are saying here today, Alex.
Shaq, as always, presenting all sides of the story. Thank you very much for the comprehensive report.
Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about, man. Many of us do not understand the concept of protecting gains that were made. Okay, it's not, you don't accomplish everything in one election cycle. And you have to understand that there's always people trying to take you back. There's always people trying to reverse laws and policies. So you have to vote to keep people in office who are protecting laws and policies who are beneficial to you, and who are writing laws and policies and voting on them that are beneficial to you, that we keep pushing for, and vote people out of office who keep blocking those laws and policies and keep voting against them. We have to understand how to protect gains that were made. There's always people trying to take you back and attack and erode your progress. And many of us don't understand that concept. We don't get everything we want in one election cycle. We're just going to go get high, smoke weed, whatever we're going to do, just don't vote. It's like, no. So the people who are fighting and passing laws and fighting to try to pass laws that are beneficial to you, you're going to let them get voted out of office, and you can let people stay in office who are clearly in opposition to you. That's not even logical. 212 Republicans. When you go to congress.gov, and you actually look at these bills, and you look at who supports the bills, who voted for the bills. Okay, George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. No Republicans in the House of Representatives voted for the bill. $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. No Republicans in the House. 212 Republicans in the House voted no. No Republicans in the Senate voted for the bill. When you look at the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, 212 Republicans voted against the bill. 212 Republicans voted against the John Lewis bill after they stood up there and talked about how great John Lewis was. And on the anniversary of his death, the 1 year anniversary, they put out tweets and statements about John. We miss John so much. We just loved, having him in the house and all this stuff. But then they said, wait a second. We're talking about protecting voting rights, which then determines who was in the House of Representatives, who was in the Senate, who becomes president. The Senate confirms Supreme Court justices. The Senate confirms federal judges. The Senate confirms the Attorney General, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Energy, all this stuff. We said, well, wait a second, hold on. Federal judges are lifetime appointments. Donald Trump got 225 federal judges confirmed, many of them unqualified, through a Republican-dominated Senate led by Moscow Mitch McConnell. See, what's taking place now, if we look at politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. The legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. This is not about a D or an R. This is about power. This is about understanding how to protect gains, and it's about self-preservation. If we look at this story here from today, from August 31st, I just mentioned Texas in the piece from Roland Martin Unfiltered. Texas G.O.P. passes election bill raising voter barriers even higher. The bill, which will tighten what were already some of the nation's strictest voting rules, represents a major victory for the white nationalist party, the GOP Republicans, in their nationwide push to overhaul elections. But they say they're trying to crack down on voter fraud and all this stuff. Okay, but there's no evidence for widespread voter fraud. Widespread systemic voter fraud that they keep talking about. They're using the big lie to push the voter fraud, but they're not. But notice they're not saying any of the Republicans picked up seats in the House of Representatives in the 2020 election. They're not saying any of those elections that the Republicans won were fraudulent. They're not saying fraudulent votes were cast for Republicans. They're not saying that any of the wins that Republicans got were fraudulent. They're just saying, Joe Biden's win was fraudulent. But Republicans won races on the same ballot that Joe Biden was on. In their districts, Republicans won races on the very same ballot that Joe Biden was on, but they're not saying any fraudulent votes were cast for Republicans that won their race. The Republican-controlled Texas state legislature on Tuesday passed a major bill overhauling the state's elections, overcoming a 6-week walkout by Democrats to cement Texas as one of the most difficult states in the country in which to vote. Well, the reason why they're doing this is because Texas is becoming less white. Texas is becoming a majority minority. Texas is becoming more Latino and African American, and it's becoming less white. And this is the fear of the browning of America. The voting restrictions were a capstone victory in Republicans' national push to tighten voting rules and alter the administration of elections in the wake of false claims about the integrity of the 2020 presidential contest. Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, vowed on Tuesday to sign the bill. The legislation takes aim in particular at Harris County, a growing Democratic bastion that includes Houston, Texas, and is the nation's third most populous county. The legislation forbids balloting methods that the county introduced last year, Harris County has a large African American population. That Harris County introduced last year to make voting easier during the coronavirus pandemic, including drive-through polling places and 24-hour voting, as well as temporary voting locations. This bill also bars election officials from sending voters unsolicited absentee ballot applications, and from promoting the use of vote by mail. The bill empowers partisan poll watchers, creates new criminal and civil penalties for poll workers, and erects new barriers for those looking to help voters who need assistance, such as with translations. Okay, the first language may not be English, and they need a translator. It requires large Texas counties where Democrats perform better to provide live streaming video at ballot counting locations. Including Texas, 18 states across the country have passed more than 30 bills this year restricting voting, one of the greatest contractions or reductions of access to the ballot since the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. What are they so afraid of? This widespread voter fraud that they keep talking about doesn't exist. If it did, then tell me how many fraudulent votes were cast for these Republicans. There's an article here from the Washington Post. We've shown it before to show how ridiculous this is. Despite GOP rhetoric, there have been fewer than 24 charged cases of voter fraud since the election. Despite GOP rhetoric, all this, the 61 lawsuits they filed, all of them were thrown out of court except one. The one they won in Philadelphia, that dealt with how close poll watchers could be from people counting the votes. That's the one they won. All those other lawsuits were thrown out by both by judges who were nominated by both Republican and Democratic presidents. One person has faced charges for every 10 million votes cast. This is from May 4th, 2021. May 4th, 2021. Okay. So read this piece here from the Washington Post. It just shows you how ridiculous these claims are. All right, now speaking of ridiculous, I want to go to day 9 of the R. Kelly trial. Let me pull this up here. So, Suzette Mayweather testified today. She's a former assistant to Robert Sylvester Kelly. And I want to go to this clip here from Black News Channel. Black News Channel has some good reporting on this. We'll go to this clip here in just a second. So one of R. Kelly's, hold on, let's see. Let's go to, where is that? Okay, let's go to this right here. We're going to look at the updates from the New York Times. R. Kelly got angry if women broke his rules, ex-assistant says. This was testimony from Suzette Mayweather. 5 accusers, 4 women and 1 man, have now testified that the singer had sexual contact with them when they were underage, including a woman who described being raped. Now, it's important to understand that R. Kelly is on trial not for rape, but he's on trial for 1 count of racketeering and 8 counts of violation of the Mann Act. Okay, 8 counts of violation of the Mann Act as well, which deals with transporting, violating the interstate anti-sex trafficking law known as the Mann Act. Okay, a single count of racketeering and 8 counts of violating the Mann Act. If we look at this article here, and I need to pull this up from Black News Channel, just a second here. Okay, let's pull up this clip. All right. So one of R. Kelly's assistants described the singer's system of strict rules for the women in his orbit and the anger he displayed when the rules were broken. The anger he displayed when the rules were broken. Okay. Testifying during the 9th day of R. Kelly's federal trial in Brooklyn, the former assistant Suzette Mayweather said that the singer once confronted her over conversations she had that had violated his rules. Ms. Mayweather said she had discussed R. Kelly's personal life with a woman she identified as Dominique, with whom she said R. Kelly was in a relationship. I think that's the same Dominique that was in Surviving R. Kelly, the documentary series Surviving R. Kelly. I think that's the same Dominique. Quote, when the singer found out that they had talked about him, He became enraged, she said. R. Kelly, whose real name is Robert Sylvester Kelly, is accused of running a decades-long criminal plot to prey on women and girls for sex with the help of a network of associates. So it's one count of racketeering and 8 counts of violating the interstate anti-sex trafficking law known as the Mann Act. He has denied accusations and pleaded not guilty. All right, I want to go to the Black News Channel for a recap of what happened today.
The racketeering trial of R&B star Robert Kelly continues in Brooklyn. On Monday, we heard the testimony of 2 new accusers, including a man who claimed the singer promised him a music career, but instead he was sexually abused for years. Today, we're hearing from former employees who described the inner workings of Kelly's home, the recording studios, and the constant stream of young girls the singer surrounded himself with. The NC correspondent Astrid Martinez is live outside the courthouse.
And the prosecution is showing R. Kelly as the head of a criminal enterprise that was led by some of his former associates, his assistants, and his entourage, which the prosecution says has enabled Kelly to continue this illegal activity for years. On the stand today, we heard from Suzette Mayweather. She was Kelly's assistant from 2015 until 2017. Now, during her employment, Mayweather said she met several of Kelly's girlfriends, including Jocelyn V., one known as Jane by the courts, another being called number 76, Juice, Summer, and Dominique. Mayweather said she traveled with the girls many times on a tour bus. She saw them in Kelly's Chicago mansion or living in his Trump Tower apartment in Chicago. Mayweather testified she cared for the girls in the studio. She would take them to the mall or spa and speak to sales associates on their behalf because the girls were not allowed to interact with other men. Mayweather even mentioned an instance when she drove one of Kelly's girlfriends to her high school graduation rehearsal in Florida back in 2016. Now, also in 2016, Mayweather said she was present at an all-female birthday party at Kelly's studio. She said Kelly became upset with one of the girlfriends after she started twerking or dancing for another girl. Mayweather testified the singer made the women fight each other in a separate room. Mayweather also described in detail the control Kelly exerted over his girlfriends. She said Kelly made the girls call him daddy. When the girls were in elevators, they had to face the wall. And at Kelly's basketball games, they could only cheer for him. The girls were ordered to wear baggy clothes, and they were not allowed to leave certain rooms in Kelly's music studio or his house without the singer's permission, sometimes staying in a room for days or without eating. Mayweather also said she heard Kelly slap one of his girlfriends in a music studio. At one point, Mayweather even started crying, recalling an instance when Kelly was visibly upset with her and Dominique for not following his protocols. Mayweather said she had never seen Kelly so mad. She feared the look in his eyes, and she feared for Dominique. Now, the prosecution says the 54-year-old singer has abused 6 women and girls, including 4 who were underage at the time he started a sexual relationship with them. Kelly has denied all accusations of sexual assault and also has denied all accusations of misconduct. In Brooklyn, I'm Astrid Martinez for BNC.
Good reporting there from Ashton Martinez. Now, there's an article in addition to the one from New York Times. And New York Times has some really, really good reporting on this. There's one from the Daily Beast, okay? There's an article from the Daily Beast that you can check out as well. And this is this piece from the Daily Beast. R. Kelly made girlfriends who twerked for cake fight each other at birthday party, witness says. And that was testimony from Ms. Mayweather, Suzette Mayweather. So you can check out that article as well. All right. Okay, well, look, be sure to register for the 10-week online course that I teach on Saturdays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. Okay, that's right on the homepage of our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And as soon as you register, there's bonus content you can start watching. Also, you will get the lecture I did on the history of Juneteenth. You get that as a bonus with this. You'll get that in downloadable format. Okay, you'll get that as a bonus. I did that June 16th, 2021. That lecture is a 2.5-hour lecture dealing with the real history of Juneteenth. Okay, so visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Click right here on register here. Then on the next page, click on enroll, and you can register for the class. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content. And you'll be ready for class on Saturday. Class number 1 starts up Saturday, September 4th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Okay, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. And also, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHNShow through Cash App, $ the AHNShow through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHNShow. And this helps us to keep doing the research and stay on the air, keep broadcasting. We're here 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. 6 days a week, 11 p.m. to midnight, and Sundays 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, thanks for watching.